My name is Chloe, and my studio apartment above the old city archives was my sanctuary. It was a quirky, book-lined space I'd secured for a song, precisely because the building was ancient. Its most charming and annoying feature was the brass call box by the heavy oak front door. To get in, a visitor had to ring your specific buzzer. You'd pick up the antique handset and then hit a button to unlock the door. I loved the history of it, the sense of old-world charm. I never once felt unsafe. The street was quiet, and my nearest neighbor, a kindly old man named Mr. Henderson, was a light sleeper. I thought the worst I'd ever hear was the occasional yowling of the alley cats. I was wrong. It started on a Tuesday, just after 2 a.m., with a single, jarring brrrr that ripped me from a deep sleep. My heart hammered against my ribs. I lay frozen, waiting. Silence. Probably a drunk, I told myself, pressing the wrong button. They'd realize their mistake and move on. I was just drifting back to sleep when it came again. BRRRZZT. 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 Three insistent, rapid bursts. My pulse kicked up a notch. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. I crept out of bed and padded to the intercom on my wall, my hand hovering over the speaker. Maybe it was my friend Maya. She'd lost her key once before. "Hello," I said, my voice shaky. "Who is it?" But what came through the speaker wasn't a familiar voice asking to be let in. It was something I didn't expect. It was the sound of low, wet coughing, followed by a faint, rhythmic scraping, like metal being dragged slowly across the concrete steps outside. Then a click as the call ended. A cold dread, thick and heavy, settled in my stomach. This wasn't right. I rushed to my window, peering down into the foggy street below. It was completely empty. No one was there. I backed away from the window, my mind racing. I decided to call Mr. Henderson in 2B. His apartment was directly above the entrance, and he'd have a better view. I found his number and dialed, my fingers trembling. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Chloe? Everything all right, dear?" "Mr. Henderson, did you just hear the buzzer? Someone's down there, but they won't say anything. I just heard this awful." He cut me off, his tone suddenly sharp and alert. I heard it. Didn't answer. My view's obstructed by the awning, but I saw a shadow move. Just a shape. Didn't look right. His words made the dread solidify into pure fear. "Don't answer it again. Don't you dare go down there." We hung up, and I stood in the center of my dark apartment, listening to the profound silence. The silence was almost worse than the sound. It felt like a hell breath. I jumped as my phone vibrated on the counter. A text from Mr. Henderson. It just read, "He's still there. I can see his shadow on the pavement. He hasn't moved." My blood ran cold. This was a game to him. He was waiting. The intercom on my wall suddenly crackled to life, but no button was pressed. A wave of static hissed through my apartment, and then a voice, distorted and guttural, as if spoken through a mouthful of gravel, whispered from the speaker. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. "I can see your light." I stumbled backward, fumbling for the switch and plunging the room into darkness. My breath hitched in my throat. How? How could he see? My blinds were closed. I was on the second floor. I pressed myself against the wall beside the window, daring to peel back the corner of the blind just a millimeter to look down. But what I saw wasn't a man looking up at my window. It was something I didn't expect. The figure was standing perfectly still in the center of the deserted street, his face completely obscured in shadow. He wasn't looking up. He was just standing there, facing the building, as if he could sense me through the bricks and plaster. And in his hand, catching the dim glow of the streetlight, was the long, wicked-looking blade of a box cutter, swinging slowly back and forth by his side. A sob caught in my throat. I slid down the wall, pulling my knees to my chest, my phone clutched in my hand. 911. I had to call 911. My fingers were so numb with terror, I could barely dial. I whispered the address to the dispatcher, my voice a frantic tremor, describing the man, the weapon. She told me to stay on the line, that a car was minutes away. Minutes felt like lifetimes. Then, a new sound began. A soft, metallic click, click, click. It was coming from the building's main door downstairs. I strained to listen. It was the sound of someone trying a key in the lock. Over and over again. Different keys, or maybe just one, failing to turn the tumblers. My mind flashed to the building manager's massive keyring. Had it been stolen? The clicking stopped. A moment of silence was followed by a different sound, one that sent a fresh jolt of ice through my veins. It was the gentle, almost polite ting of the elevator button being pressed in the lobby. Someone was coming up. The ancient machinery of the elevator whirred to life, a sound I usually found quaint. Now, it was the soundtrack of my nightmare. It was coming to my floor. I whispered a frantic update to the 911 operator. The elevator groaned to a stop. The brass grate slid open with a familiar rattle. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed in the hall, coming closer. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath, my eyes locked on the thin sliver of light under my door, waiting for it to be blotted out by a shadow. But the shadow never came. Instead, something I didn't expect happened. From the other side of the door, I heard a different sound entirely. It was the sound of Mr. Henderson's reedy, furious voice. "You get away from there. The police are on their way. You hear me? Get." A scuffle erupted in the hallway. A grunt, the sound of a body hitting the wall, a furious curse that was cut short. Then silence. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Was Mr. Henderson hurt? Was the man waiting for me to open the door? I didn't know what to do. Then a single sharp tap on my door. I flinched. It was followed by a soft, calm whisper. It was Mr. Henderson's voice. "Chloe? It's all right, dear. He's gone. I scared him off. You can open up. It's just me." Relief flooded through me, so intensely it made me dizzy. Dear, brave Mr. Henderson. My hand went to the deadbolt, my fingers ready to turn it and throw my arms around the neck of my savior. But I stopped. Something was wrong. The whisper, it had been calm. Too calm. Not out of breath from struggle. And the scuffle, it had ended too quickly. I closed my eyes, remembering the text. He's still there. I can see his shadow on the pavement. Mr. Henderson's apartment was above the entrance. To see his shadow on the pavement, he'd have to be looking almost straight down from his window. The voice outside my door wasn't that of an old man looking down from the second floor. The voice outside my door belonged to the man who had been standing in the street. This fright the one the wind brought to my door. We wrote it off as a false alarm. Then we saw the red laser sight flicker in the dark.
I work patrol for a private security firm in Phoenix, Arizona. My job is basically answering alarm calls for businesses and high-end homes in the suburbs. 99% of the time, it's a false alarm. A janitor forgot the code. A raccoon tripped a motion sensor, something like that. This particular call came in just after 1 a.m. It was for a house in a quiet, upscale neighborhood in Scottsdale. The alert wasn't for a motion sensor. It was a specific door-forced open alarm on the rear French doors. The homeowner, a woman named Jennifer Miller, was out of town in California, but her security app notified her. She'd asked her boyfriend, Mark, to meet me there. He was already waiting in the driveway when I pulled up, looking annoyed more than worried. "Probably the wind," were the first words out of his mouth. "Those doors are old. Jen's always paranoid about this stuff." We walked around back. The French doors were closed and locked tight. No visible damage. Mark shrugged. "See? False alarm. System's too sensitive." I was ready to agree. It was a common story. I started filling out my digital incident report on the tablet, marking it as a malfunction. That's when I saw it. Through the large kitchen window, deep inside the dark house, a tiny red light moved in a quick, deliberate arc. Like a laser pointer, it swept across the ceiling and vanished. My blood went cold. I kept my voice low. "Mark, did you see that?" "What?" he said, not even looking up from his phone. "A light. Inside. A red dot." He finally looked at me, a smirk playing on his lips. "Dude, it's probably a router LED or something. You guys see boogeymen in every shadow." He laughed, but it sounded forced. I wasn't convinced. I shined my flashlight through the window. The beam swept over the stainless steel refrigerator. And that's when I saw the smudge. A dark, greasy handprint, clear as day, on the white cabinet next to it. It hadn't been there a minute ago.
"Mark," I hissed, my heart hammering against my ribs. "The cabinet. Look," he saw it. His smirk vanished, replaced by pure panic. "What the hell? Jen's not here. I'm not here." He fumbled for his phone. "I'm calling the police." As he dialed, a light on the second floor blinked on. A bedroom light. It cast a yellow square onto the perfectly manicured lawn below. Then, a shadow passed in front of the window. A large, distorted silhouette of a person. Here 1 second, gone the next. That was enough for both of us. We didn't wait. We ran back to our cars, locked the doors, and sped down the street to wait for the police at the community entrance. When the Scottsdale PD showed up, it didn't take them long. They found the point of entry, a small basement window, well hidden by shrubs, its glass quietly and expertly removed. The red light I saw was a laser sight on a pistol used by one of 4 men inside to check the hallway. The handprint was from one of their gloves. The bedroom light? They turned it on to ransack the room for jewelry. Later, watching the body cam footage with one of the officers, my stomach churned. The timeline showed they had entered less than 10 minutes before we arrived. They were inside the entire time Mark and I were standing at the back door. They were listening to us. The officer told me they were a crew known for targeting homes where owners were on vacation, using a source inside a travel agency to get itineraries. They weren't there to steal TVs. They were after specific, high-value items. And all 4 were armed. The lieutenant looked me dead in the eye. "You and that guy got lucky. If he'd had a key and you decided to go in for a quick look, well, it would have been a very different report I'd be writing tonight." I finished my shift in a daze. The would have played on a loop in my head. Now, every alarm call feels different. The dark silence of a big house isn't just empty anymore. It feels like it's holding its breath. And I know, with absolute certainty, that my job isn't worth walking into a shadow that has a laser sight pointed right back at me. I'll wait for the police every single time.